A dangerous and complicated multi-day weather pattern is unfolding across the United States right now, and it is affecting tens of millions of people from New England all the way through the central and southern plains, the Midwest, and eventually into the Ohio Valley. Before this stretch of weather is over, we are talking about life-threatening flooding already in progress across the Northeast. A significant and fast-developing severe thunderstorm threat across the Great Plains and Midwest spanning Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and a temperature pattern that is going to feel completely out of character for the time of year across several major regions. The flooding threat alone is serious enough to demand your full attention. The severe weather potential layered on top of it makes this one of the more complex forecast setups we have seen in quite some time. And the wild card at the center of all of this is Friday, a severe weather day with one of the highest ceilings we have discussed in recent memory, and simultaneously one of the lowest floors as well. That combination alone tells you everything you need to know about how unusual and unpredictable this pattern truly is. Let's break down exactly what is happening, where it is happening, when it is going to arrive, and most importantly, what you need to do to stay safe. We are going to start with what is happening right now, today, across the northeastern United States, because there is already a significant and dangerous flooding situation developing. And it is one that deserves your immediate attention if you live anywhere in southern Vermont, Connecticut, or Massachusetts. A slow-moving coastal low-pressure system is currently developing in the vicinity of Long Island and Connecticut. Now, here is the thing about this particular setup that makes it unusual. Coastal low-pressure systems of this type are far more common during the winter months. Seeing one of these organize and behave this way at the end of July is not something that happens regularly, and that alone should tell you how anomalous and significant this weather pattern really is. This coastal low is spinning showers and thunderstorms across the New England region throughout the course of today. And the biggest concern is not thunder, it is not lightning, it is not even wind. The biggest concern is rainfall and flooding, and it is a major one. The morning hours are when the flooding risk is at its most acute across western New England. The reason for that is straightforward. A lot of rain is falling in a very short window of time, and the areas in the crosshairs are areas that are already prone to flooding even under normal circumstances. If you live in southern Vermont, the Hartford, Connecticut area, or the Worcester, Massachusetts area, you need to understand what is at stake here. When we talk about 3 to 4 inches of rain falling across New England, that number sounds manageable on paper. But in this region, the drainage infrastructure and the terrain mean that 3 to 4 inches of rain in a short period of time produces flooding that would require 8 to 10 inches of rainfall in other parts of the country. The land simply cannot absorb and move that volume of water quickly enough, and the result is major flooding across low-lying areas, roadways, and communities that sit near streams, rivers, and drainage channels. And 3 to 4 inches is not even the top end of what we are expecting here. Some localized areas, including the Hartford, Connecticut area, and the Albany, New York area, could see rainfall totals approaching a half foot, 6 inches of rain, over the next 24 to 48 hours. If you live in one of those areas, and you are in a low-lying neighborhood, near a body of water, or anywhere that has flooded before, this is not a situation you want to take lightly. The guidance here is simple, and it is non-negotiable. Turn around, don't drown. Do not attempt to drive through flooded roadways. Do not underestimate how quickly conditions can change, and if local authorities issue evacuation guidance for your area, follow it immediately. Tonight, the storm activity associated with this coastal low will shift eastward into areas like Cape Cod and Nantucket. And while the flooding threat will begin to gradually ease for some areas, it is worth noting that the nature of this low-pressure system and the wind shear in the area does introduce at least a non-zero risk of an isolated waterspout or a brief spin-up tornado near the coast tonight. That is not the headline threat, and we are not treating it as the primary concern, but it is worth being aware of if you are in those coastal communities. The main story remains the flooding, and that heavy rainfall is going to continue into Thursday as well, with at least some persistent rainfall across New England even as the pattern slowly begins to evolve. Now, let us shift gears entirely and talk about the severe weather side of this forecast, because while the flooding situation is serious and ongoing across the Northeast, a brand new storm system is already beginning to develop and organize across the central and northern plains, and it is going to drive a multi-day severe weather threat that spans Thursday, Friday, and Saturday across a very large portion of the country. Today is Wednesday, and the Storm Prediction Center has issued 2 areas of slight risk for severe weather to keep on your radar. The first of those slight risks sits along the Florida and Georgia border, near the Jacksonville, Florida area. The second slight risk is placed across the northern plains. For both of these areas, the main concern today is damaging wind gusts, with speeds potentially reaching up to 70 miles per hour. There is also the possibility of some large hail, primarily across the northern plains. The tornado threat today is minimal. We are not looking at a significant tornado setup on Wednesday. And overall, most storm activity today is expected to remain relatively tame. That said, tame does not mean zero risk, and if you live in the Florida-Georgia border region or anywhere across the northern plains, you should be prepared for at least some damaging wind gusts during the afternoon and evening hours today. Across the southeast more broadly today, scattered showers and thunderstorms are expected to develop from the Birmingham, Alabama area back through the Jacksonville region. The window for the highest risk of severe weather in that corridor is from approximately 5 o'clock this afternoon through around midnight. Damaging wind gusts are again the primary concern, and while a slight risk does exist, forecasters are characterizing this as a fairly ordinary storm day for the southeast despite the official risk category. Across Florida on Thursday, we are expecting widespread showers and thunderstorms to develop, which could produce some damaging wind gusts if any storms become severe, along with abundant lightning. If you're planning a beach day along Florida's west coast Thursday, this is not the day for it. Back across the northern plains and the broader Great Plains region, thunderstorms will be developing this afternoon as well. The more intense band of thunderstorm activity is expected to be concentrated over Montana and North Dakota, where damaging wind will again be the primary hazard. There may also be some isolated hail, described as roughly pocket change sized, but nothing beyond that is expected for today across that region. It is worth emphasizing, today's severe weather potential, while real and worth monitoring, is not the headline event of this week. The headline event begins Thursday and runs through the weekend. On Thursday, the risk of severe weather begins to expand significantly as that brand new storm system pushes into the central and northern plains. The Storm Prediction Center has outlined a large marginal risk of severe weather that stretches from the Kansas City area all the way back into Minnesota. That is a very large geographic footprint for a marginal risk. Within that broader marginal area, a slight risk has been issued for parts of Nebraska and South Dakota, where a more localized but concentrated damaging wind threat is in place. There's also a marginal risk of severe weather for parts of the southeast, and another marginal risk covering portions of Oklahoma and the Texas Panhandle. For Thursday, straight-line damaging winds up to 70 miles per hour are the primary concern across the Great Plains, along with the possibility of some isolated large hail. And while the tornado threat is not the headline for Thursday, you absolutely cannot rule out an isolated tornado from a rogue supercell across Nebraska or South Dakota. If you live in those areas, that is a threat worth keeping on your radar Thursday afternoon and evening. In terms of timing on Thursday, storms are expected to begin firing around lunchtime in the vicinity of Watertown and Mitchell. Those initial storms are expected to produce mainly isolated wind and hail, but as the afternoon progresses into the 4 to 5 o'clock timeframe, discrete supercells will be attempting to form in this environment. If any storms are able to maintain discrete structure in that setup, the threat escalates. You're now looking at the potential for an isolated tornado alongside the wind and hail hazards. If discrete supercell development does not occur, those storms are expected to cluster into a line of thunderstorms during the early evening hours. And that line would produce a scattered to numerous damaging wind threat across areas including O'Neill, Sioux Falls, and Kearney. One important detail about this storm system on Thursday and into Friday morning, it is going to be slow moving. This is not a fast-moving squall line that blows through in an hour and is done. This line of thunderstorms is going to be sluggish, and that matters because it means it is going to take several hours to progress from where it initiates toward places like Kearney, Omaha, and Maryville, eventually pushing into the Kansas City area during the early morning hours on Friday. The slow movement of this system means that locations in its path could be dealing with these storms for an extended period of time, and it keeps the threat relatively localized to a specific corridor rather than spreading rapidly across a wide area all at once. If you live anywhere along that corridor from the Dakotas through Nebraska and into Missouri, this is a system to monitor very closely starting Thursday afternoon. Now, we have to talk about Friday, and I want to be as direct and honest with you as I can about Friday, because this is genuinely one of the more unusual and difficult forecasting situations we have seen in a while. Friday is a severe weather day with an extremely high ceiling, meaning under the right circumstances, Friday has the potential to be a very significant and dangerous day of severe weather, including the possibility of a tornado outbreak. But Friday also has an extremely low floor, meaning there is a legitimate scenario where almost nothing happens. No widespread severe weather, no outbreak, just some scattered showers and maybe a couple of isolated thunderstorms. Both of those scenarios are on the table. Both of them are realistic. And the reason for this wide range of outcomes comes down to what happens with the low pressure system developing over the central and northern plains on Thursday and how that system evolves as we head into Friday morning. Here's the crux of the forecast challenge. If that low pressure system maintains its strength or intensifies as it pushes into the Midwest on Friday, it becomes the engine for a potentially significant severe weather day. The conditions around a more prominent low-pressure system would produce a large corridor of instability stretching from the Fayetteville, Arkansas area back up through the Springfield region. Strong low-level winds would be present across Missouri and Illinois, and critically, the wind profiles in this environment show winds that are veering with height, meaning winds turning direction as you go higher into the atmosphere. That veering wind profile is one of the key ingredients that contributes to rotational potential in thunderstorms, which in turn creates tornado risk. The European model, which is a deterministic modeling product, does show a much more prominent low-pressure system in this scenario, with widespread heavy rainfall across Iowa, Illinois, and Wisconsin, and a significant instability corridor that would support all hazards of severe weather, including the potential for strong tornadoes across parts of Missouri and Arkansas. If you live in that corridor, from Fayetteville, Arkansas, through Springfield and up into Missouri, Friday is a day you need to be paying very close attention to. The potential is there. The ingredients are there. What we do not yet know is whether the atmospheric evolution over Thursday night is going to allow them to come together. But here is the counterpoint, and it is an important one. High-resolution computer models, which tend to do a better job at resolving the finer details of convective evolution, are not painting nearly as aggressive a picture. Some of those high-resolution solutions barely show this scenario as a possibility at all. They suggest that all the convective activity happening Thursday, all those storms across the plains, is going to stabilize the atmosphere significantly by Friday morning, essentially pumping the brakes on any organized severe weather. In that scenario, what you end up with across Arkansas, southern Missouri, and Oklahoma is not a tornado outbreak. It is scattered showers and a couple of thunderstorms with perhaps an isolated damaging wind gust as the only concern. So the severe weather risk there is lower than you might expect given the broader setup. This is the definition of a high uncertainty forecast. And the honest answer right now is that we are going to know significantly more about how Friday is going to unfold by tomorrow morning, once we can see exactly how Thursday's convection evolves overnight. What we can tell you right now is this. If you live anywhere from Oklahoma through Arkansas, Missouri, southern Illinois, and into Iowa, Friday is a day to take seriously and to monitor closely. Do not let the uncertainty cause you to be unprepared. Make sure you have a way to receive weather alerts, know where your safe space is, and have a plan ready in case conditions deteriorate rapidly in your area. This is also a good time, right around this point in the forecast, to make sure you are subscribed to the channel and have notifications turned on. We are going to have a much more detailed update for you tomorrow morning, with all the latest information on Friday set up. By then, the picture should be substantially clearer, and you are going to want to see that update before Friday arrives. Into Saturday, the storm system continues its eastward progression and shifts into the Ohio Valley. Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio, and West Virginia are all in the crosshairs for another round of severe weather as this system pushes through. The tornado threat on Saturday would be the primary concern, given the wind shear present across that region. However, and this is consistent with the theme of this entire forecast, convection could once again be a limiting factor on Saturday. Too much rainfall out ahead of the main threat could stabilize the atmosphere and significantly diminish the severe weather potential. So Saturday's outcome is, at least in part, dependent on what happens Friday and how much atmospheric stability gets eroded or reinforced by that ongoing convection. We are watching Saturday closely, but we are also acknowledging openly that there is meaningful uncertainty in how that day plays out. By Sunday into Monday, the storm system is expected to gradually weaken as it approaches the East Coast. Even in a weakened state, it could still produce at least some rainfall and perhaps isolated severe weather across parts of the East. For some of you, that carries welcome relief from heat and dry conditions. For others who have already been dealing with flooding and excessive rain, additional rainfall is the last thing you want. Either way, the broader evolution of this storm system over the coming days is going to bring quite a bit of rainfall to a large swath of the country. The European model is suggesting a widespread 1 to 4 inches of rainfall over many areas, with localized totals potentially well above that threshold in spots that end up directly under the most persistent rainfall. Again, the exact evolution of the system is going to be the determining factor in where the heaviest totals ultimately land. Now, let us talk about something that is genuinely good news buried inside this otherwise complex and active forecast, because there is actually a significant silver lining here for a lot of people, particularly those of you in the Midwest and the Ohio Valley. Temperatures over the next several days are going to be remarkably comfortable for late July, and that is not something you can say very often during this time of year across those regions. Even heading into Thursday morning, low temperatures are going to drop into the 50s and 60s across the Ohio Valley. 50s and 60s as your overnight low temperature at the end of July is genuinely impressive and extremely welcome for anyone who has been dealing with the oppressive heat that typically defines this stretch of the summer season. High temperatures on Thursday across the Midwest are going to be running in the 80s and 90s in terms of feel-like values. Not cold by any stretch, but compared to what this time of year usually brings, This is a very manageable and comfortable air mass for most people. The notable exception to that pleasant temperature picture is the central and southern plains. Locations like Dallas and Oklahoma City are going to be dealing with feel-like temperatures approaching 110 degrees on Thursday, as the heat dome building across the western United States continues to exert its influence over the southern tier of the country. For Friday and Saturday, the ongoing rainfall associated with this storm system is going to continue keeping temperatures suppressed across the Ohio Valley, the Northeast, and even portions of the southern plains. Most areas in those regions will see temperatures running near or below normal during that stretch, which is genuinely welcome relief heading toward the first weekend of August. The one persistent exception remains Texas, where that building heat dome ensures temperatures will remain elevated and uncomfortable throughout this entire period. As we move into early next week, Monday and Tuesday, comfortable and pleasant temperatures are expected to persist across most of the Midwest and the Ohio Valley and the Northeast. That is a tremendous break for a huge number of people who will have just navigated a multi-day stretch of active and at times dangerous weather. The Gulf Coast, Texas, and the desert Southwest will remain hot during that early week period, continuing to feel the influence of that western heat dome rather than the cooler, storm-driven air mass affecting areas to the north. The bottom line for this week is this. It is an active, complex, and in some ways unprecedented stretch of weather across a large portion of the country. Flooding is happening now across New England, and it is serious. Severe weather is building across the Great Plains and will expand through Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Friday remains the wild card of the week, with a forecast uncertainty range that is genuinely wide. The outcome of Thursday night's convective evolution is going to be the deciding factor. The Ohio Valley gets pulled into the threat zone by Saturday. And underneath all of that, temperatures are going to be surprisingly comfortable for the time of year across the Midwest and the Northeast. Small consolation perhaps, but real and meaningful. If there is one thing to take away from this forecast, it is that the next 72 to 96 hours demand your attention, your awareness, and your preparedness. Know where your local alerts come from. Have a plan. Do not wait for conditions to deteriorate before you act. And check back here for tomorrow's update, because that video is going to be critical for understanding exactly what Friday and Saturday have in store. As always, a sincere thank you to everyone watching today. If you are new here and found this forecast helpful, please subscribe down below. It is the best way to make sure you never miss an update during an active weather stretch like this one. A huge thank you as well to all the channel members and to the Velocity sponsors who make this kind of detailed, ongoing severe weather coverage possible. We could not do what we do without your continued support, and we are deeply grateful for every single one of you. We will have another video for you tomorrow morning with a much more detailed breakdown of Friday's severe weather potential as the picture comes into sharper focus. Stay weather aware, stay safe, and we will see you in the next video or on the live stream.